So let's take a sort of a view of where the club is at the moment, because at the start of the season, Steve Parish said because of the players that we've had historically, we've played a certain way. And he wanted to change the DNA of the club and make it a more Ajax style of football, that Frank de Boer was the man to do that. Is that what Crystal Palace fans want from their club?
All the Palace fans that I speak to, if they did want that, they don't want it to happen so drastically, so quickly, because it seems it's very difficult for the players to grasp what they were doing. And when you're hearing it in pre-season and the training sessions that the under-23s are beating the first team regularly with this system, what he wanted to play, I don't think that helps confidence. And then you go into the game, the first game against Huddersfield, and they absolutely hammer you, and your confidence is low as it is. I feel that the Palace fans are instantly saying, why are we playing like this? Why are we trying to play like this? And, you know, a lot of mistakes were made, even under your tenure, when you was doing your stuff, Al, so many mistakes, individual mistakes, and we saw it again the other day.
Well, that's what it does to the players. But from a manager's point of view, if you're charged with changing the way that a team plays and coming in and making big changes to their style, do you expect to be given longer than a pre-season, a fairly quiet transfer window and 4 games? Absolutely.
I mean, you know, Frank had a tough time in Milan, and he's come to Crystal Palace and ended up with the same fate, really. Now there's all kinds of messages coming out from the camp, but not really a great defence for the manager, because he's defenceless in some respects. So Ian's point about the under-23s regular beat in the first team, that might have probably been on one occasion, and I'm sure the manager could give you examples of when things went very, very well. You know, when you're trying to change, and I got asked, and me and Steve talked about it the year after the cup final, to get a more possession-based team. It's not easy. And in the end, I resorted back to playing a more...
Was it the players weren't good enough? Or the players couldn't do it?
Well, I think sometimes you don't want to give them confusing messages. And if they're not feeling confident, it's you know, as a manager, you've got to win. So if you're putting a team out that's not feeling confident and looks edgy, then that's going to make the fans edgy, it's going to make everybody edgy. And it only needs to be in 3 particular positions. The right back might not feel comfortable, or the right wing back, or whatever you're playing. The bottom line, and Roy will know this going into that job, and Frank knew it when he started, whatever system he was going to play, you must get results in the Premier League. And that's been really underlined with this sacking. 4 games in, nobody really can be judged as a manager in 4 games. I don't care the deficiencies that may be suggested in him. I'm talking about Frank here, but you know, in 4 games is not enough. I'm afraid it is not.
It wasn't just 4 games and 4 defeats, though. It was 4 defeats without scoring a goal and being the first side that had happened to since 1925. It's not just failing to get the results. It's historical failure, isn't it?
It's still 4 games. You know, if you're a football manager and you've won the league with Ajax, and you know, I just feel that it's been very, very quick, this decision. I don't think even Crystal Palace fans really, other than the media getting very excited about it, massively calling for his head. So I don't know, but you know, the bottom line is that with Frank de Boer, this whole system about he was trying to play too much football, I'm not so sure about that. I don't think defensively the game plan was intact, and that probably alarmed Crystal Palace fans more than winning games. They looked a little bit open, and I think that's a bit of a worry going into a season.
But that's been a long-term problem, and it's one that you faced when you were Crystal Palace manager, trying to organise that team defensively.
Well, you signed Sakho. Now, if you look at how Crystal Palace stayed in the division, it was evident that the centre-half position was becoming an issue. Sakho comes in January, and suddenly they start winning some momentous games at top opposition. They sign him in the last transfer deadline. He hasn't even played for Frank. So you could argue Frank perhaps deserved a little go with him and see if the results improve. This guy's percentage win is greater than any manager that's been there or any player at the moment, and I think that he'll be the first name on the team sheet for Roy if he's fit.
Yeah, it was such a significant difference between games in which Sacco played and didn't play in terms of Crystal Palace's win percentage. So 4 games in, he still doesn't have access to Sacco. Zaha was out injured.
Zaha's a problem.
Yeah, and so
Benteke
how can you say, when you don't give a manager all the tools at his disposal, that you can judge him fairly?
Well, it's blatantly obvious to everybody and who's looking on the outside looking in that they feel like it's very unfair, and of course it is. If I was Frank, especially coming off of the Inter Milan, and I was going to say to you, Al, do you think that might have had something to do with it? Because he got done in, 88 days, and now they've done it in 72, 77 days. Do you think he's just said, well, he's kind of used to it, might as well just do it again, just get it over and done with? You know,
subconsciously, maybe that that might be in the back of the mind of Steve and David and Josh. I don't know that he's had this problem or had a problem after a short period of time at a big club, and he's come to the Premier League and he's struggling okay. I don't know. Subconsciously may have been a factor, but the bottom line, I don't care. Whatever level you've managed at, you can't really be judged.
I wouldn't like to. I've got to say, I personally, I would be, obviously, you're devastated, and he's probably devastated. But the one thing I've had to say is that, you know, Steve, and I know there was tweets the day before, and that made me a little bit like suspicious. Was
when the tweets were saying we're only 4 games in, let's be sensible about this, let's stick together. They weren't tweets that suggested he was a man on the brink of
no, that's what I'm saying. It's almost as if someone's read his tweets and said he's got to go. So you're going to have to change.
Someone being?
I don't know. Maybe the people upstairs. I'm not sure what would have happened, but I can't understand how, if he knew that he was going, then why he'd be saying that, because it just seems almost contradicting himself, and it didn't make him look good in that respect.
I have to say that, you're going away to Burnley and David and Josh arrived from America and sit next to Steve at the ground. I thought that was ominous, really, knowing how that particular scenario works. And I feared for him, to be honest.
You feared what? You feared for Frank then?
Yeah.
Do you think that they fired the guy?
But there was two ways that was going to work. That was either a message of support from the board, we're with you, let's go over together, or OK, this is why we're together and we have to make the decision after this game. That game was crucial, and Scotty Dan heads that big chance.
Yep.
He had 2 big chances in the game, Scotty, and knowing him as I do, he would have been kicking himself that he didn't especially score the second one. It was a massive blow, but the performance in that 4th game, for me, is a problem, because I thought the players fought hard.
Yes, yeah.
And you can't fault their effort on the day. If you had Zaha fit, if you had Sacco playing Burnley up there, I think they win that game. I really do.
Do you think you can tell watching a match whether the players are playing for their manager, whether he has their support?
Yes. Yeah, yes, you can. I think we saw that with Chelsea the year before, and we saw it with Leicester when they weren't.
You can
playing.
tell when it's gone, you mean?
when they're not.
You can have periods, Ian, in your management, right? And I had it at Newcastle where that was accused of my teams not wanting to play for me, etc., etc. And you can have some games that get really ugly on you. And let's be honest, that accusation was thrown at Arsene Wenger at Arsenal, and he's still the manager, and he won the cup final. So you do get periods, trust me, when the group and the team, the game just unfolds badly and it looks like people ain't trying. 9 times out of 10, when you look at your team, you might think 1 or 2 maybe threw the towel in, OK? But the unit, probably not. And you need to claw that back, and you need to claw those individuals back. You might have to leave them out of the team. You might have to change just the dynamic of that first team. Now, you see these times when manager change 4 players. That's trying to change the dynamic of the dressing room, because you don't want to have another performance like that and really lose the group. So these are little tools, but as a manager's point of view, looking at that game on Sunday, I thought that was a strong performance from Crystal Palace, and it's a tough place, Burnley, to go. They've had some great results already. That was a tough result. The 3 before that, unfortunately, I didn't think were very good.
No.
And I think that was where maybe this all kind of started and snowballed. And we know in the media, and the Premier League in particular, it can snowball really quick.
pretty quickly.
Especially with people like us sitting talking about it every night,
you know,
every night of the week.
It's hard for me because I'm a member of the LMA, and in a way, you know, I'm only in one position here. I'm just going to support the manager. So, you know, I make no bones about that. But, you know, the job is, in terms of the media and everything else, that sometimes you do need kind of have some sort of defence for the manager. And the way the world works in the Premier League is when a manager gets sacked, and I don't care if it's Frank or anybody else, the machine of the club can turn against the manager, and the manager's got no backing. You know, you've got your LMA, and I think they should be a little bit more proactive in defending managers, in my opinion. But, you know, that's where it is.